What up, homies? Today I want to expand your imagination by showing you how you can use the design options built into Focus to take what is a vanilla default Focus installation and start turning it into or customizing it in a way that is more evocative of your brand, or to help you kind of get the look and feel for your website that you want. All right, and basically the corollary to that is I don't want you to feel like you are stuck with the default Focus layout here and the color scheme and all that stuff. Focus is delivered this way by default because it is a canvas for you to customize. That's the intent. If it were heavily customized right out of the gate and had a very specific look to it and color scheme and all that stuff, you would have to undo that before applying your own customization layer, and that's a super inefficient process. It's much better if you start with something that's untainted and then just layer on your stuff. That way you don't have to undo things, which can be frustrating and also introduces its own bit of complexity. So this setup is designed for you to take, your creative genius and then just to apply it, and that's a much more delightful approach. So let's dive in and see how it works. So again, we're just looking at a vanilla Focus installation, 0 design modifications. It has a white header, a white navigation section, only delineated by some horizontal lines. We've got our content area here, and then a footer at the bottom. But like I said, no color has been applied to this. Obviously, this is not a very interesting web page, so there's really nothing going on here. Let's spice it up. So I'm looking in the thesis admin inside the WordPress admin, and we're going to visit the design options page for Focus. All right. Now, I cover the way these design options work in great detail in a different video, which I will link in the description, and you can venture over there when the time is right. But for now, I just want to show you how to use what you've got to get what you want. Okay, and so we'll revisit fonts in a little bit. We'll talk about some colors also in a little bit, but for now I want to drop down here to the layout sections area. Okay, and so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to give a different color, background color, to our header and our footer, and that'll make the content area really stand out. And we'll give a different color to the navigation area too, probably. So we'll start by doing the intuitive thing and selecting a background color for our header. The way these little selectors work, you've got color 1 through 6, and then you can select a custom color. Color 1 through 6 are defined up here. But like I said, we're not going to worry about that right now. We're just going to do a custom color. We'll do whatever we want. So let's see. So we will make the header color a light blue. We'll copy that. And we will also, we're not going to do anything else. We're going to make the footer color, not going to do anything else for the header. And then we're just going to apply a background color to the footer. And we're going to make this like a dark gray or something like that. But we want it to be kind of a blue gray to match, sort of reflect the color we've put at the top. All right, so we got that. And again, we're not messing with anything else right now. So we will save it, and we'll see what that gives us. Okay, so I've just changed the header color. Obviously, the text is going to need some adjusting so we can really see it well. And then I've changed the footer color, same sort of story there. I want to point out a couple things here. The first thing is that when you overscroll, if you look at the bottom of the screen here, an overscroll produces a white area. And if this page were really, really short, and I don't know that I have any good examples of this. Let's see. No. All right, well, if this page were really, really short, meaning not, if the bottom of it was right here, if the footer was like right here, then there would be a big white gap beneath it that kind of shows you this overscroll area. That color would be revealed. So it'd be white. It'd be weird. Then the footer's sort of an interruption. And we have the same sort of behavior going on in the header as well. I don't care for this. I don't care for that color, especially on the bottom. I'd rather the bottom of the document all be the same color, and I'll show you an example of this. Over here, if I overscroll, notice how the overscroll keeps the same color as the footer. I find that way more savory than the color interruption, like the white interruption that I showed you. And so I call this footer continuity, and I actually have some instructions for how to achieve this on my site here. Actually, if you go to the documentation here, footer background color continuity, you can click on that, and then this tells you how to achieve footer background color continuity, but I'm going to go through it here in the video. And so what we do, it's sort of counterintuitive. To achieve background color continuity, we actually want to take the background color that's applied to the footer and apply it to the entire body. Okay, we're going to leave our header with its own unique background color. We actually don't need the background color on the footer anymore, so we'll just delete it. And then, but we do need to say that the content area gets a white background. Color 1's white, so we'll just shortcut it. And then we will also need to say that the navigation area gets the white background color, because anything that doesn't have a background color specified now is going to inherit the body background color, which is quite dark. And actually, I'll leave this unselected so I can illustrate this concept. Okay, so let's see what we did. So we've changed the background of the entire web layout to this footer color. So now we have that footer continuity in the overscroll, which is nice. If this were a short page, everything would look right and it would be normal. But now our nav menu has the same background color, which we didn't want. We did specify white for our content area, so that looks correct. But you know, the background color of the whole page is shining through here, if you will, on this navigation section. So if I want this to be white also, or a different color, I would need to go in and specify that also for the nav section. And what I'll do, just to be sort of spicy here, is I'm going to take the background color from the header and make it just a little bit darker. Just a little bit darker for the nav section. And that should look kind of cool. So let's see. And that didn't work because I did something wrong. What a goof. Oh, well, I obviously didn't select the right thing. I did the text color for the header. Oops. Okay, so we'll kill that. We'll go back to select color. Then for the nav, we'll input the custom color. Boom. And now we'll save it again. Let's see what happens this time. There we go. It's looking a little better. So, you know, just a little different way to set that apart. I don't know if you can even see this in the video, but there is a border below the header and below the nav menu, and it's 10% darker than the background color that you've supplied for both areas. You can eliminate those or change those very easily. So like the header, it has a border below header, and it's using border style 1. I could just as easily get rid of that, get rid of the one for the nav, and then that. See, it sort of tighten that up, and it's now just one color after another. There's no extra little tones in there. So we will assume that this is the outcome we wanted, and now we'll go in and tweak some of the colors that appear. I'm okay with the black text here, but I think I'd like to change this to white, so we'll do that. So we can go into the layout sections again. We'll change our... actually, we could change the text of any color that appears in the header to white. So we'll try it this way. We'll do that. Our contrast color is white here. That's defined up here. The text contrast color is white. That's a shortcut. In this case, we could have also just gone here to custom color and said FFF, FFF. That's also white. Would have been the same outcome, but we'll just use a predefined color since that's what it's there for. And we will see what happens here. And I changed the title again. It's hashtag doing all the wrong things day, apparently. All right, so that's the text color of the header. So it changed the site title, but not the tagline. There's actual controls for these specific elements under site elements. So you would say that the site title gets whatever color you specify, and the tagline color gets whatever you specify. We'll say it's contrast in this case. And then for the header, we're just gonna do nothing. So there we go. So we've changed our tagline color directly by changing the tagline color. The reason why those options were set up the way that they are, and the reason I made a mistake, is because this is designed to accommodate you. If you wanted to like stick something else in the header, like a phone number or a thing says, hey, email me, or some social media icons or something like that, they would be controlled by whatever color you specify for the header. But the site title and site tagline are very important elements, and they have their own specific controls, color controls, that supersede whatever you would define in just the generic header. So this is an example of the way Focus is designed for your growth. Like if you want to layer stuff on, you'll have easy ways to control the way stuff appears, like colors, all that sort of thing. But you also have specific controls for what I deem to be essential elements, primary elements of your website. These things include site title, site tagline, your nav menus, a sidebar if you're using one, any buttons, any inputs like form elements, and also these previous next links, which are sort of a legacy part of WordPress. Okay, so next step, we want to change the colors in the nav menu. Now I don't like them. They don't, this blue text on a dark blue background obviously doesn't work. So we can go into the nav menu section. Actually, we're going to go into the site elements of nav menu because we're not changing this section. We are changing the nav menu itself. And we will change the link color to the high contrast white. We'll save it. And we see that we have changed that color as well. So this is very easy to do using the existing options. You do not need to add any custom CSS or anything like that. You have control over this stuff directly from this options panel. And what's cool about this, and what really is freeing about this whole setup, is that you can't screw anything up by using these options. It's very simple. So we've already done what we've done. We did the footer color continuity. I just want to illustrate this, but it's very easy to go in and restore your previous settings if you didn't like what you did, or let's say you do like what you did. So we'll say that we like these modifications, and I want to snapshot this state of my website so that I can return to it because I'm getting ready to make some other changes. I'm not too sure about them. I don't know if I'm going to like them, so I want to go ahead and save this so I can return to this later in the event I don't like the next steps I take. So I got ahead of myself here, but what we'll do from the thesis admin, we're going to click on the skin menu. I'm going to open up the skin editor. Okay, the skin editor includes something called a data manager. We'll click on that. And the data manager allows you to create a snapshot of your site and its settings at any point. This is not your whole site. This is just for your design. This is just for focus, really for focus. This will snapshot your focus settings. So we will save. I'll create a new backup. And hit OK. And there it is. We've got our focus backup. But let's say we didn't. So I saved that because I'm going to use that again in just a second. But let's say we didn't like the changes that we made and we wanted to revert back to a previous state. Or let's say we really feel like we screwed things up and we want to just reinstitute the default settings. Okay. So in the data manager, you can click Restore Defaults. I'm going to get rid of everything except for the design options for now. So we're going to restore skin CSS. Well, we don't have to do that. We don't have to do that. We'll just do the design options. We'll just restore those because that's what we screwed up. So we'll just restore the design options and click Restore Selected Defaults. And there we go. We'll hold Shift, click Refresh, and boom, there it is. So our design options have been reset. And then on this page, I'll need to refresh it too so it picks up the changes that have been put back in place. And so we can go in here and see that now our body has no background color selected, neither does our header, neither does our nav. So we have undone the changes that we made. And so it's very easy to flip back and forth between these states. So I'll do it again. We'll go into the data manager, we will restore our focus backup, and we will see what that does. Oh, there it is. So our design options are back in play here. So you can see this is a very easy way for you to, practice some trial and error here. And this is a way for me to show you how these design options are non-destructive. You can't screw anything up. So play around with them, go nuts. If you end up getting a result you don't like, you can always revert back to a previous state and then can forge ahead from there. So this is great. This is freeing you up to be productive and to experiment and to be more creative. And so let's see what else we can do here with the design options. But we need to look at a more exciting page to really illustrate this. So we'll flip over to this page, which has a heck of a lot more going on. So let's see here. We've got a lot of the stuff in the design options here speaks to designing your content. Okay, and designing your content is fundamentally different than designing your website. Your website's sort of a container for your content, and the content displays within it. So in theory, you could extract content out of this immediate design and stick it into another design and still have some very visually engaging content. The only real quest at that point is for you to adapt the interior content styles here with the more exterior styles of your design container, if you will. So the idea is that you design content, but you design it in a way that it becomes portable into the future, because your design is going to change over time. You're going to make adjustments. You need ways to adjust the design of your content to match the design of your site. But you don't really want these two things to be super entangled with one another, because then moving forward with anything new becomes a real mess, and there's lots more for you to untangle. So the way this is set up keeps you agile and keeps you flexible as you modify your site and change your site to do things better as you forge ahead. Okay, so we're looking at some of the stuff here, or some of the pieces of content here. So we've got, we've got subheadings within the content, and they're just in regular text. They're the same color as the text. They're not bold. There's maybe some things we can do here to change that. Here's some buttons. These are basic buttons. They have basic colors. We could change that if we wanted. We've got captions. Captions come in this gray text color. We could change that if we wanted. We've got these image frames. We could change the colors on those. We could do all kinds of stuff. These are content callouts. This is an alert. This is a note. And this is a box. We can change those colors if we'd like. So let's dive in and see how we can do some content design. And I'll also point out one other thing you need to know, sort of based on the way I described this: the design container, this stuff, and the content container. So this layout sections area is designed, and in concert with the site elements area, this is how you affect the design container, okay? And this content elements section is how you affect the content, which again, I sort of imagine as being more portable and flexible, as being able to be dropped into different types of designs, okay, and be adaptable to these new settings. This is a very modular approach to design in general. But we're going to look at, let's say we got a headline, and then we got, like I said, subheadlines that occur within this content. So I'd like to make these bold. So here we go. We can go ahead and say that's bold. We'll leave the color the same. Our bylines, we got this too. That's this. It's presented like that for now. We're not going to worry about that this time. But we will change heading 2 to bold, heading 3 to bold, and heading 4 to bold, because that's what we're going to do. Okay, and then we can also change block quotes. We'll look at that in just a second. Like I said, image frames and captions, those callouts I highlighted. These got inline highlights, which is something like this. You can change the color of that if you don't like that yellow. And then we've got code and other stuff that you might include in certain types of posts. There's not a lot of that going on in this particular example. But bottom line, you have control over all these little granular pieces of content through the design options. So like I said, all we're doing now is making some headlines bold. Let's do this. And let's take a look. There we go. These guys are bold now. This is bold. These subheadlines are bold. That's super easy to do. And you can change the colors of these things if you want to get absolutely crazy. Sky's the limit here. You do whatever you want. Here's a block quote. I mentioned that. Right now it's this gray color. We could make that something more visually engaging if we wanted. Possibly like an orange or something to kind of contrast with our pretty blue color in the header. We'll try something like that. I need to make it a little bit darker. That might not be dark enough. There we go. So as you can see, this is sort of designing your content. That's what these controls are for, these content elements controls. So I really want you to think about this in terms of 2 separate layers. You have your site container layer, and then you have your content container layer. Now, you'll notice, and maybe some of you noticed this, I'm glad this actually came up during the video. This is instructive. So notice the header's white again. Okay, what I did was I restored the design options. I did not refresh the design options page. So I'm going to go in here, restore my backup once again, refresh the design options. I need to go remake these changes because I was a bit silly there and didn't follow my own rules. Okay, we'll go back to our block quotes. We'll select the color. We'll do that crazy orange color. There we go. Now we got our stuff back. And now the block quote color kind of goes better with our steely blue vibe. Okay. So let's see what else we can do. All right, so I decided right now this site, this little example here, is running in readability mode, which gives you a constrained width of content, and it shoves it over the left side of the layout. A lot of people who use Focus like to have their content and everything centered. In fact, this is the design conceit I use on DIYthemes.com. As you can see, this column of text is centered. Well, this is very easy to achieve. We actually, for this, we go over to the content and display options. We go to the content presentation mode, and we change it to focus, and we hit save. We hold shift, click, refresh, and boom. Now everything vital to this layout is centered on the page. And there's some little bit of behavioral differences between the readability mode and the focus mode, but bottom line is you can switch your stuff back and forth, generally with no ill effects, and kind of get a different vibe on your website. But you can already tell that this looks pretty remarkably different from a vanilla Focus installation. We could take this a step further. Let's say we've got some kind of corporate website and we don't want a tagline to display there, and we're going to stick a logo up at the top to make it a little bit more brand adjacent, or a little bit more supportive of the brand. So for that, we're still going to stay here in the display options. We're going to click on global layout elements. We're just going to eliminate the tagline. And we can add other stuff here too, which we'll explore in just a second, like another navigation menu, for example. But for now, we're just going to nuke that. We're going to nuke the tagline. She gone. All right, and then we can add a logo if we want in place of the logo. Replaces this sort of insipid text that's your site title. So we'll do that. Let's add a logo. Why not? Let's see. We'll use a little DIY themes action. Okay, we got that. Now if we hold shift, click refresh, boom. Now we got a logo up the top. Now these colors are a little bit wonky now, but just stay with me here. That's a very easy way to replace the whole vibe of the header. And now you could, let's flip back to readability mode just for imaginative purposes. We'll flip back over. And now, so if we're in readability mode here, you can see how you could stick a bunch of stuff out to the right of your logo if you wanted. Maybe this is a little bit more spitballing here. Focus doesn't make this super easy. This is actually a complicated maneuver, but you could display a nav menu out to the right of your logo instead of having it be in the separate section. And you would need to do there would need to be some custom stylistic massaging necessary to make it display properly over there, and then to degrade down into responsive views. The reason why Focus works the way it does and is set up the way it does by default is because these responsive views are easy to handle the way this works. So you can see in responsive views, you get a horizontal scrolling menu. It's got an indicator of how this works on the left there. So you get the horizontal scroll, and actually degrading a menu down from something that appears out to the right in desktop and then maybe condenses to something less than that, maybe this convention out here on the right, or possibly a hamburger icon menu. That is a much bigger undertaking there. And there's also some performance implications from the use of a hamburger menu. I talk about this in other videos at length about some of the usability concerns associated with hamburger menus, and about how not everybody gets that interface convention, and also about how on mobile devices, when items are hidden from view and only revealed by a click, they don't exist, essentially do not exist to about half of your visitors, which is a big visibility drop. And generally, we think about items in our navigation menu as being very important. Like, these are the most important links we want people to see. And so when you balance that with this notion that stuff that's hidden behind a click is sort of invisible to about half of your audience now, the fastest growing segment of your audience, actually, mobile users, I'm just not sure it makes a lot of sense to stick your most important menu items or items in general behind a click. It just doesn't really work anymore. So anyway, a little free education there. But like I said, you can see that you have the tools to go ahead and make some of the changes you're going to want to make, color and otherwise. And then you can sprinkle on your own brand assets, things like that, and get the environment set up. And then you will know, like, okay, I feel like it's mission critical for me that this menu actually appear out to the right. So what you do is you seed your environment. You set it all up, and then you only have to undertake one task. In this case would be like implementing your menu the way you want. Now, why is this important? Why is this something that's worth mentioning? It is important because with any theme, every other WordPress theme that's ever existed, you can't just set up your environment to do one thing. You do one thing, there's lots of downstream implications for other things. If you were to change a template, in one way, you'd have to go and change it in all these other ways. With other themes. And the way other themes work, you actually have to deal with code in template files to do it, and then those files are in jeopardy whenever your theme gets updated. It's not a very bulletproof system. And it's the whole point of the way Focus works is to, and I mentioned this at the beginning of the video, I said that this is vanilla so that you can sprinkle on your customizations without having to undo anything. Well, this process I've just described is exactly the same way. It's designed so that you have a minimum amount of entanglements that you have to navigate to be able to get the results that you want. So everything is simpler, everything is more straightforward, and this actually, this is sort of a superpower for Focus. What this does is this enables people like myself, other people who are very good with the software, experts. There's tons of these people in my forums, in the Focus forums. It enables these people to answer questions like somebody says, well, hey, I'd like to do this. How can I do this? We all know what to do. We can say, okay, do this with your design options. And then now, if you've used the environment the way it's intended to be used, now you can follow this simple set of commands to get the result that you want without having to worry about entanglements, unintended consequences, things like that. This is solving the problems endemic to basic design. Now, you may look at this and say, well, I don't really care about that. I just hire somebody to do it. But the joke's on you because there's really no way to hire people to do this anymore. You can hire offshore, basically. And your confidence level with that is whatever your confidence level with that is. I see this stuff all the time. My confidence level is not that high. So to me, it's very important to provide you with an environment like this where I know there are no entanglements that you're going to have to traverse, stuff that's going to introduce incredibly complicated technical scenarios that you may not be qualified to deal with, may not want to deal with. So I work very hard to try and get to help you avoid those pitfalls so that you can really narrow down, okay, this is what I want to do. These are what my needs are. And that is a much simpler process. It's cheaper and it's easier for you to get the results you want by working within a framework like that than working within this infinite one that requires you to pull one lever over here and three more over here and then a couple more over here. That doesn't scale. That doesn't work. And so let's do one or two more things that I alluded to earlier. So we'll add a secondary nav menu because Focus has this capability. We're going to go to the global layout elements and we will enable a secondary nav menu. And interestingly, there's a function here. You can only display the secondary menu to logged in users. And this is interesting. If you were running a membership website, for example, this is a very easy way for you to add a secondary menu that's only going to appear for your paid or whatever, anyone who has passed your gateway and is part of your membership system. This is a great way to display a menu only to them. What I love about this is, you could create an account menu for these people, or if you've got protected content, private content that you only want them to see, using the secondary nav menu with this extra capability here is a very easy way for you to do that. And then you can control the items in the menus from your Appearance Menus tab in WordPress, and that's totally cool. So we'll kind of look at that real quick. So for now, we're just going to display the secondary menu to everyone to illustrate this. And okay, look, our secondary menu appeared. It's currently using the same menu as our primary menu, so we'll fix that. And then also, this is using the background color from the whole page that we set up when we tried to achieve our footer background color continuity. So Now we see we need to go over to the design options. We will go to layout sections. We got our secondary nav. We got our primary nav. We are going to mirror that background color but make it a little bit darker. So we will input this custom color here, and then we'll make it a little bit darker there. We will save. So we're gonna solve the color problem there. That's looking pretty cool. Now we want to change the menu. This is easy also. We're gonna go back over to the content display page. We will locate our nav menu focus secondary, click on that, and now we can select a different menu. I guess the focus menu is probably displaying there, so we'll choose the GRT menu. Or the WooCommerce test menu. Yeah, we do GRT, whatever. All right. Okay, so this is a different menu designed for whatever. I've done a million things on this website, so I have a couple orders set up for nothing. Menus, set up for various experiments, and so I'm using one of those here. But as you can see, very easy to specify two different menus, two different sets of links, and like I said, this secondary menu has a capability to only display for logged in users, so that is super, super handy. And actually, I noticed that this secondary menu has a border on the bottom as well, and we are going to eliminate that because that doesn't work with our aesthetic in this case. And every time I make a change in the design options and hit save, when I view my site, I'm holding the shift key and clicking the refresh button. That dumps the browser cache and forces the latest styles that we just tweaked to be incorporated here in the document that we're viewing. So obviously it doesn't take a whiz to see that we are now working with a significantly different vibe, color-wise and everything else, with our focus installation. And all we've done is tweak a few options. This takes no time at all. It's a non-destructive activity, like I said, so you can go nuts with this. You can try out different color combos and anything else you want to do and play around with this till your heart's content. And you can restore design and display options, all that stuff, at any time in case you want to go back to a previous starting point. Okay, so I hope this has been informative. I realize everyone, there's a billion and one customization interests and concerns out there. I know that I have not addressed them all here, but I wanted to show you that if you are thinking of focus as what it looks like in, by default, and judging it by that, you're not seeing almost all of what focus is. By judging it and say, oh, it looks vanilla and boring, well, that's because this is set up for you to color on. It's like I've given you a box of crayons and an empty pad of paper. You go nuts. Create your thing. I've made it easy for you to create your thing in a way where you can't screw anything up. So if you look at focus and think this, I really want you looking at it thinking this, thinking about the possibility, these colors you can add, spice it up. Make it fit your brand. Make the color scheme work with your established color scheme. So like I've done a blue color scheme here. Links inside my items are currently blue. That's no good. We'd like a contrast. Let's change our link color. We'll go into base colors. Here's our link color. Let's do something orange. That's really exciting and contrasty. There we go. We have orange links now, and that's more complementary. Here's another one of our general color scheme. So like I said, sprinkle to taste. Flavor your sites the way that, add the flavors that you want. Don't look at focus as this vanilla thing. This is a possibility engine. It's a possibility engine designed for you to take advantage of and to get what you want. Now, like I said, I hearkened to this just a bit ago. I want to just tie this whole thing up for you guys. I know some people want big hero images and all kinds of other stuff. The reason things like that are just not completely available by default, you can sprinkle them into this, no problem. You can add that type of functionality. People do this every day in my forums. We work through this stuff together. We have lots of solutions for lots of different idiosyncratic design presentations. But big hero images, stuff like that, that's a big performance cost. Big images, and especially the way most people use them, they'll just upload some gigantic, 4,000 pixels by 2,000 pixel, 3 megabyte image. Well, I got news for you. You've got this huge image, and now whenever a mobile user visits your site, this huge image actually appears very small for them, but it still was 2.5 megabytes to download and made your pages very, very slow. In 2020 and beyond, speed is the most important quality for your website to have. Speed and clarity. If your website takes 5-6 seconds to load or longer on a mobile device because you got a big dang image at the top that people are just going to scroll past anyway to get to the content, the reason they actually came on any of your pages in the first place, that's something you need to think about. And so I don't make it super easy. I don't make it hard. I just don't set it up so that you can just sprinkle on all this stuff that's going to, completely terminate the performance of your website, because that's not going to do you any favors. You'd be better off erring on the side of extreme, kind of like being ascetic, err on the side of extreme conservatism here with your design, as opposed to going over the top with imagery and other things that are going to take longer to load. Black text on a white page with no accoutrements is better than a bunch of fancy stuff that takes forever to load, because it's more accessible. It gets used more. It loads faster. It loads when somebody's standing in line at Chipotle with a crappy internet connection and they just clicked on a link from social media. This is the way you have to think about the web now. This is how people access your stuff. People are on the go. Connections cannot be relied upon to be super fast, certainly not all over the world. And so, like I said, use a little bit of restraint. I'm not saying you have to be stuck with that. I'm saying if you're going to go outside the boundaries of restraint and do things that are a little more ambitious from a design perspective, you need to make sure you're proceeding with performance in mind and optimization. You don't just stick a big hero image on a website, call it a day. It's 2.3 megabytes that has to load on every single page that loads. No. What you do is you make sure you compress and optimize that image first, make sure it's only as big as it needs to be, make sure that thing is only 365 kilobytes instead of 2.3 megabytes, and now you're talking. That's the proper way to do a hero image, things like that, more advanced designy type stuff. But again, the real point I want to make here is that type of adjustment to a design would be made on the design container level and not necessarily within the content itself. And again, I want you to think about design as happening in two layers: the design container layer and the content layer. The real design I want you to focus on now and moving forward, and the design that's most important by far, is the design of your content. And Focus gives you absolute control over the design of your content through these content elements items located in the design options. You can basically control everything that matters from there. You can make changes. We can change fonts easily. I didn't even do that here for this example, but that is easy to do using the Google Fonts library. Let's just do that real quick. I'll show you one I love right now. Let's go to IBM Plex Sans for the headlines, and then we'll do IBM Plex Serif for the content. Let's see what happens. Let's see. We've got IBM Plex Sans. So IBM Plex Sans is currently being used everywhere. So I set up font 1 and font 2. So now we'll go in here to content elements. For headlines, we want them using font 1, which it will do by the... so let's see here. We'll need to set up the other way around. We'll do this the other way around. We want the content to be serif and everything else to be sans, all headlines. So we'll set up like this. And I've got a tutorial on this on in the my documentation. If you want to make font 2 a headline font, this is how, if you wanted to say, okay, I've got my main content font, but I want to make my headline font and subheadlines a little different, which is a really cool and common customization for your content. Okay, so I switch that up, and then I'm going to go down here to the content elements, and I'm going to deploy font 2 for headlines. And subheadlines. There we go. Selected font 2 for those items. We saved it. We're going over here. We're holding shift, clicking refresh. We've got sans up here, and we have serif in the content, looking very fancy, very luxurious. Like I said, you can see how that is different. So you can see you have complete control over your fonts. You got complete control over your colors. You can spice this stuff up. You can add elements for membership websites, things like that. You have total control, and everything that you can do through the design options is always going to it's going to ensure, if you take action through the design options without sprinkling in anything else or trying to change things or doing really advanced stuff that you may be not qualified to do, as long as you stay within the guardrails that are set up in the design options, your site will always retain perfect responsiveness. It will work on every device, and you will not have to worry about that crap, which becomes a real burden in the long run. Like, there's nothing worse than adding something to your site and knowing that someone's going to hit you up and say, oh, hey, I had a big horizontal scroll bar on this page and it looked like crap on my mobile device. Like, this is a Sisyphean battle that is not worth continuing to fight. And so by sticking within the guardrails I've established on the design options page here, you can ensure that your site is always responsive, always awesome, and you can make these incredible changes and really spice up your content and have it looking fantastic. Okay, and I've got, just to end this video, I want to encourage you to watch another video I've got about the focus content presentation styles, where I'll teach you how to use things like this inline highlight. This is a box. This is an alert. Pardon, there's a call out. It's called an alert. And this thing also has a pop style applied to it, which gives it this little box shadow in the background. I show you how to do, all this stuff, all this cool stuff. This is called a bleed. Notice how this thing takes up the entire usable width of the layout. Got a video on this, using this stuff too. So it's really the design that we probably think of as being web design has heretofore been this design layer, the design container layer. But I want to encourage you to think about design as being this content layer now. This is really where the money is at. This is the magic now. Because on a mobile device, the only thing that exists is your content. On almost every mobile device, most of the design layer, like 85% of it, sort of disappears. And it cedes itself to the content, which is its own sort of separate entity that can be designed on its own and is more transferable. It can be placed within the context of different design layers, and you can get different evocative outcomes that way. So anyway, I'll drop a link to that other video where I show you how to use the focus content style classes to produce really engaging pieces of content. I'll drop a link to that in the description. So I encourage you to go down that rabbit hole, the other one I sent you down earlier, and I want you to play with these design options and see what you can come up with. Think of this as a creative exercise, a non-destructive creative exercise. So you're just free to experiment and go out and create what you want to create, okay? So think about focus as a possibility engine and not this vanilla design here that you get when you first install the thing, okay? It's designed for you to leave your mark on this and to be creative and to be awesome, all right? Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.